we're joined by Craig Proctor from Accident Specialist. Naturally, Craig himself is an incident specialist and specialist investigator, including for the scope regarding incidents and accidents that happen on our roads. Thank you, Craig, for joining us today. And also thank you for your presentation here at the SIOSH conference. I've put together a few questions mostly focused or only focused on the traffic accidents and the risk associated with being on the roads from an employer's perspective, so that we can maybe cover some of this content for the viewers. First off, what are the most common causes of work-related traffic accidents and how can employers address them?
Yeah, it's a fairly straightforward answer, but at the same time, it's a complex answer because the human factor is shown all the time to be the key issue. But the issue with that is that people say, well, what's a human factor? Human factor has many facets to it. One of the most common human factors we talk about, which is the biggest parameter that often comes out, is distraction. And usually, as we know, that's cell phone, music, other people in the car, just general preoccupation, something we see very often.
Right.
People not paying attention on the road, but fatigue as well. Also, very big, very common factor to cause the crashes. And that's not just for the normal members of the public. That also includes, and quite heavily, people in industry that are under pressure.
Right. And so what is it that employers can do about this? What are some of the steps that they can take?
Yeah, it's a very difficult answer to that question because there is no single point. It's not as if you can say, let's just build a barrier in the middle of the road and that'll stop all the vehicles going on the other side of the road. So, you know, they talk about the different ways of doing it, education, engineering principles. It's not as easy as that for an employer. And if an employer there's a huge risk or liability on an employer if an employer does nothing. The problem is, what do you do?
Yeah.
And usually that comes down to things like monitoring. So that's why we talk heavily about tracking vehicles, using modern technology to say how fast is the vehicle going, where is the vehicle, how many hours have they driven. So that is probably right at the top of the list in terms of what needs to be done, is tracking and monitoring. Whether that be that you have a delivery motorbike that runs around, 4 little buckies running around, or 500 vehicles. That's probably your starting point and your key thing to go with, is tracking and monitoring. But over and above that, there's many assets and aspects of training and educating drivers, but a very difficult answer to give you as a single point of reference and say that's what needs to be done. You need to kind of think out the box and get to know the staff and kind of address all the different issues as you can.
Right. How do employers balance, or how can they balance the need for employee mobility and productivity with the need to minimize risk, especially for those employees that have to travel long distances?
Very, very good question. And it's a very difficult question because very often we see that in South Africa, what you've just posed is exactly what the problem is. And that makes me think immediately, for instance, in the commercial transport industry. In the commercial transport industry, your profit relies on the amount of time your vehicle is driving on the road. And that we see very often, the drivers, when we stop them and question them, will say, we are pushed to drive as many hours as we can, but there's the other side of that as well. The drivers also incentivized and want to work the extra hours to earn the extra money. So it's not a one-sided affair. So to answer your question, again, very, very difficult. To me, the answer to that is correct, appropriate, ethical management. We know that there has to be a limit on driving hours. There has to be a monitoring of fatigue versus reward. And that comes down to ethical business practice.
Right. How do you see technology playing a role in the future with regards to allowing the employer the opportunity to manage this risk more effectively? And if we look at the current state of affairs, you spoke about tracking. How can employers currently, with what we have available to us, leverage tools that are available from a technological point of view to make their fleet safer, to make the driving habits safer, to create more awareness? What are some of the ideas or things that are available other than tracking?
Yeah. Look, again, I have to reiterate, tracking is first and foremost key on the top of the list, but with that tracking system comes various other systems that are associated to that tracking.
Okay.
And one of those things is, for instance, fatigue monitoring. So within the vehicle, there's various different systems. One of them will actually monitor your face, and they will look for what's called perclos. Perclos is the rate at which your eyes will close or blink or fatigue. So technology like that, which is linked to your onboard telemetry systems in the vehicle, is a huge growing and used factor. But, there's many other technological things that you can use as well. For instance, even just monitoring driving hours. Again, that's linked to the tracking systems. Right. But so it's not necessarily per se about the tracking system necessarily just monitoring speed. But it's those other technological things that you're referring to that come with that as bolt-on or as extra facilities within a tracking system that are hugely beneficial and can make the most difference.
Right. Do you see a role for and a space for AI in this regard as well?
Most definitely. AI is growing hugely, and particularly, as I just said to you now, on the issue of body language. So you may have heard in the presentation, I said to you that we're busy with a research study at the moment, and what essentially, to put it in real simple terms, what they've done is they've given us 200 incidents that have occurred over a period of a year for a transporter, those particular video clips. That AR is actually doing the analysis on that video clip, and it's allowing us to see, as I've said to you, perclos, it's allowing the AR is looking at the fatigue from body language, it's looking at it from eyes, and it's building algorithms and giving answers and helping decide, how do we address this? How do we fix this? How do we improve on this? So AR is certainly. And not only that, also things like monitoring the vehicles as well. In terms of the physical vehicle itself, monitoring the condition of the vehicle. Technology, which includes AR, is certainly growing. It is a big aspect. I don't think it's reached that far yet into the technology realms of vehicles, but it is certainly there. It is coming.
How can employers prepare for technological advancements and managing risk for things like automated vehicles? Whether self-driving vehicles doing the delivery. I mean, we've seen the advert, Elon Musk running around with these fancy cars, those types of scenarios. Yeah. What can employers do to stay ahead of the curve in this regard? Because it just seems like things are moving so fast. And we're not in a first world country, so it's a little bit more difficult or challenging, I believe, here than it would be in a first world country.
You're absolutely spot on. So, without mentioning any specific names, there are certain transporters that are already in that realm. We, because inclusive of that would be electric vehicles. And electric vehicles are already in use here, although very limited, usually on short trips because of the need to recharge at certain points. Over and above that, things like smart roads, where within the structure of the road or structures around the roads, usually bridges, where there are electronic points that are talking to the vehicle, where are you going, where are you coming from, bouncing signals to other vehicles is in terms of, they refer to the technological term of ADAS. ADAS is a lot of the telemetry that's on board vehicles that will warn drivers, automatically slow the vehicle down, even partially steer for you, falls under the general realm of what they call ADAS. It's the automated driver assistance systems. So in the greater scheme of what you're saying, the technology is there, it's coming. It is here, even in South Africa, although we're not first world like Sweden or Germany or something like that, it is here. It's going to get better, it's going to improve. It will naturally take that much longer here than it will in, so to say, other more advanced countries. But it is coming, and in order for transporters to keep up with that, you just need to read. You've got to read the magazines, look at what's going online, look at what's available. Perhaps join one or two of the technology groups, and there's many of them online. And I'll give you an example. We're doing a lot of telemetry downloads from vehicles now. And that falls in line with smart vehicles and what's coming in technology. So yes, it's there. It's going to come. It may come a bit slower, and transporters and operators need to just be aware of these things. I think you would be quite surprised that a lot of the vehicles have a lot more technology on board than what people even realize nowadays.
Yeah. Do you feel that as the situation stands now in the current state of the country, with us depending very much on road transport, getting goods from one point to another, not using the railways as much as what we could, that the need for these types of technological advancements and even changes in legislation and municipal bylaws may be hasted, or that maybe they need to be sped up a little bit?
Absolutely, no question. Good question. And there's no question with that. We do need a massive emphasis on transport as a whole, whatever that may be. And we don't want to get into political realms, but we've always said the issue of someone that are in the key positions of education, health, safety, and transport is a big, big, big factor. Because whether we like it or not, transport is the lifeblood of a country.
Right.
Whether you are going to or from work for you to get to the office, whether it is you transporting staff to a work, whether it is a construction vehicle going to a site transporting staff and equipment, or whether it is a truck delivering food to Checkers or Spar or a shop for you to get food, it's the lifeblood of the country. So to have legislation improved to whatever extent and whatever is necessary is absolutely crucial. That includes things like, monitoring heavily cost of fuel, cost of maintenance, cost of tires, importing, exporting, cost of vehicles themselves. So the legislative control over that and who controls that and how that's controlled, huge effect on the country. I mean, you cannot stress that enough.
Awesome. I think it's a very interesting topic. And I look forward to reading up a little bit more myself as well. So thank you for your time.
No,
I
it's
do
a pleasure.
appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.